Non-rock-a-boaters must stop. I don't want to rock the boat. I want to sink it.
Are you going to bark all day, little doggy, or are you going to bite?
Brett,
delusional. I love you, Jeff.
delusional, yeah. Delusional's okay in your worldview. I'm an animal. You don't chastise chickens for being delusional. You don't chastise pigs for being delusional. So you calling me delusional using your worldview is perfectly okay. It doesn't really hurt. She hung up on me.
What?
Desperate times call for faithful men and not for careful men. The careful men come later and write the biographies of the faithful men, lauding them for their courage.
Go into all the world and make disciples. Not go into the world and make buddies. Not to make brosives.
Right.
Don't go into the world and make homies.
Right.
Disciples.
I got a bit of a jiggle neck. That's a joke, Pastor.
When we have the real message of truth, we cannot let somebody say they're speaking truth when they're not.
Take an amazing journey to a place that will blow your mind and move your heart so you will never be the same again.
Then the Pharisees went and plotted how to entangle him in his words. And they sent their disciples to him along with the Herodians, saying, Teacher, we know that you are true and teach the way of God truthfully, and you do not care about anyone's opinion, for you are not swayed by appearances. How do you like that flattery? Tell us, then, what do you think is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar or not? But Jesus, aware of their malice, said, Why put me to the test, you hypocrites? Show me the coin for the tax. And they brought him a denarius. And Jesus said to them, Whose likeness and inscription is this? They said, Caesar's. Then he said to them, Therefore render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. When they heard it, they marveled, and they left him and went away. What's up, guys? Welcome back to The Gospel Heard Around the World. You guys can get us at apologiastudios.com, APOLOGIA studios.com. That's where you to get all of the past radio shows, podcast episodes. You get television shows. And you can sign up for All Access and partner with our ministry and make everything that we're doing possible as we communicate the gospel all around the world in so many different areas, whether it is in the area of abortion, whether it's in the area of atheism, Mormonism, the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, whether it's with feminism, whether it's with socialism, Marxism, you name it. Everything we do at Apologia Studios happens because of our All Access partners. So I want to thank you, all of you guys who are partnered with us in this ministry to make everything possible, first and foremost. But if you sign up for All Access, you'll also get the TV shows we've done. You'll also get the Apologia Academy and the after shows. You can sign up for All Access, and you can get training with Dr. James White, myself, Gary Demar, Douglas Wilson, Saitin Bruggencate, John Sampson. The list goes on and on and on. Joe Boot, too, I think, is in there, too. Andrew Sandlin. Some great stuff, guys. So go sign up for All Access. Partner with us as ministry. Again, this is the Gospel Heard Around the World. Thank you guys for joining us today. We're going to talk about taxes today.
Yeah.
That is Luke the Bear, the man, the myth. The legend, Pastor Luke Pearson. Hey, we're here today, just the two of us. We're going to talk about something that's near and dear to our hearts, and that is the law of God. And we're going to talk about the issue of taxes.
Yes.
Taxation, y'all. The sorts of things that people threw tea into water for.
Could you have done that?
Oh, I don't know.
If you were in that position and they were like, we're throwing yerba in the bay, would you have done it?
Would not have done it.
I didn't think so.
I would have maybe like thrown it into a boat, like overboard, and be like, see, it's going over. It's
you're like, you make a sound like it splashed.
You can't throw that. You can't throw that. You can't throw that away. That's crazy. And the crazy thing is what was the number? I think it was like 2% or less taxes on tea. They were like, how dare you tyrant, try to tax this product at that level of taxation? You're going down. They saw a taxation on a product of tea. Those Brits and their tea. They were like, you ain't taxing my tea, yo. They love their tea.
They do love their tea.
John Sampson loves his tea.
He does.
He always needs to have
Remember when he saw his one? It was like PG Tips or something. He bought
Tips.
like literally like a crate because it was on clearance.
PG Tips.
Yeah.
Yep. That's right. That's what they do, and they love their tea. And so you can see all the descendants of the British coming over and loving Jesus and loving God's law and justice. They were like, say what? King George, the tyrant, says what?
Yeah.
What? And taxation 2% or less or whatever it was. So we're going to talk about that today and biblical taxation. How do we respond to the question full of malice and hypocrisy that they were asking of Jesus, trying to entrap him. How do we respond to that? And does the Bible have anything to say about just taxation? And so we have one of our heroes, one of our friends, one of our mentors, Uncle Gary Demar from American Vision. You can get him at AmericanVision.org and .com, I believe.
Yes.
Go get their stuff. It is all delicious. And some of you guys may have recently seen the Theology Bites episode that we did with Gary Demar.
That was also delicious.
That was also very delicious. We had a lot of fun doing that. And we've done tons of stuff with Gary over the years. So just search Apologia Studios, look for Uncle Gary, and you guys are going to get some good stuff. And a recommendation I'll make for you guys ahead of time as you guys think about, what can I get from Gary, is get Wars and Rumors of Wars by Gary Demar, and you get that on American Vision. So welcome to the show once again, Uncle Gary Demar.
Good to be here.
All right, brother. So we're seeing and hearing a lot from each other lately.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. In fact, I was being interviewed by Chris Arnzen last night. It was a 2-hour show, but about an hour and 50 minutes of commercials. I think there's one commercial that goes from 20 minutes, 10 minutes to 10 minutes
kidding.
out.
Yeah.
And I told Chris, I said, while your commercial was going on, my wife and I went out to eat dinner. But I mentioned you guys because I was talking about eschatology a little bit, and I said when I first got into all this and started talking on eschatology, Ken Gentry and I and a couple of other people were about the only ones who were talking about it and interviewing and debating it. And when I first started, I found that all the phone calls we would get, I'd be attacked. We'd be at 90% to 10% of the people just attacking me. And in fact, I did a California interview show over 3 nights. It was 9 hours, 3 hours each night. In fact, we just offered it today, called Gary Demar Under Fire, where people were just asking questions regarding eschatology. But I went on to say, hey, look, but today, we've got all these young guys out there, and I mentioned Apologia and you and Luke and of course James White, who's a little older guy, but there are a lot of young guys now who have grasped the comprehensiveness of the Christian worldview. Yeah. Beginning to apply it to every area of life, seeing the interconnectedness of things like law and worldview and eschatology and journalism and video and film production. All this fits together. So it's really a brand new world, and things have changed dramatically. And think about what we're doing right here. Here I am in Marietta, Georgia. You guys are in Arizona, and you're doing this all over the world because of the changes in technology, and we should be encouraged by this. We always seem to think that the unbelievers are the ones who have taken advantage of all this, but Christians have understood this as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Amen to that.
Yeah, so we should talk about it. Just lay some foundations. Thank you guys, everybody who's joining us on the episode today live, and everyone who's listening to it later by download and streaming. I want to start with the foundations. Let's get into what is an area of a special area of expertise and experience for you, Gary, and that is the issue of God's law. You've talked a lot about God's law in your series, the God and Government series. You talk a lot about the history of the West and biblical foundations that were there in terms of justice and standards of righteousness in society and law. So let's start this way. So people are coming here today and they see the title that says Apologia Radio talking about taxes. And, ooh, that sounds interesting. Like, to what degree? And we're supposed to just, obey the government. And if they say, pay this level of taxes, we just do that sort of a thing. Mm-hmm. And so people always will quote Romans 13, submit to the governing authorities. They always miss that part where it says that the governing authorities are God's deacon, God's servant to essentially uphold justice and to punish the wicked and to protect the righteous. So people miss that. In terms of the definition of God's deacon, what's he supposed to be up to. But the issue of taxation, you have people today, Gary, in America wealthy people who have worked hard to build businesses
Right.
and create jobs. They pay people and create things.
Are you
that
talking about
actually-
Donald Trump?
Yeah, Donald Trump's a guy. He's made a lot of money and built businesses. But we say things like today, like we have like the coveting tax today, where we say like you're really wealthy, you've made a lot of money, you've produced a lot of things in the world, you've made a lot of jobs, you've got a really big house, you've got great cars and the trophy wife, and so that means that we're going to tax you at 65%. Maybe we'd like to get around 90, 95, somewhere around there. And so we just say, like, well, that's just how it is. It's a coveting tax. You just have to pay it. Because why? Because, well, you're really doing well. I want that stuff.
Yeah.
And so we say, even for the average American citizen today, we have something called income tax. Not just tax on products, not just tax on services or something like that, but we have taxation on income. And so we just assume it now, and we don't know where it came from, and we assume that's just how we're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And now here's the thing: we live in a society and culture. We can't do anything about it. You just have to yield to it, or you're going to get busted up. But we have to ask the question: is it just? And does God's law speak to the issue of taxation? So maybe we start there, Gary. Does God's law speak to this? Do we actually have biblical standards to point to? And help us get into it by talking that direction.
Well, the Bible has a great deal to say about all this. We're always back to this: by what standard are you going to determine what sort of taxation we ought to have? But you can't even start there. You've got to go back and say, when we talk about governments, and I outline this in my book, God and Government, that the Bible addresses multiple governments: family, church, and state. The civil government, if it very, very limited in its scope, very, very limited in its jurisdiction, and therefore any taxes that are accumulated should only go towards those things which the Bible says it specifically has jurisdiction over. But what's happened in our culture today, we've turned more and more jurisdiction over to the civil magistrate. A good example is the area of education. Federal Department of Education didn't start until Jimmy Carter's administration. We didn't have a federal Department of Education. There are literally tens of billions of dollars that are taken from taxpayers that go up to the federal government, and then the federal government disperses those back to the states, and therefore controls the curriculum and the way things ought to go. Well, not only doesn't the Bible give direction and jurisdiction to the civil magistrate on education, but neither does the Constitution. You will not find the word education anywhere in the Constitution. And since the Constitution is a document of enumerated powers, that is, unless a power is actually listed in the Constitution, the federal government doesn't have any jurisdiction over it.
Right.
So when you start talking about taxation, you have to talk about what should the civil government do? What is the duty of the civil magistrate? And you can start lopping off all kinds of things that the civil magistrate should not be involved in. And that then there fits with the amount of taxation you have.
Right.
But boy, everything is taxed, and almost everything is controlled by the federal government. We turn things over to the federal government, and if you look at the 9th and 10th Amendments to the Constitution, these things should reside with the states, and if the states don't have that authority, they should reside with the people.
That's right.
And unfortunately, you mentioned the covetous tax. People say, yeah, tax those rich people, And when the I think it's the 16th Amendment, the Income Tax Amendment, was voted on, the people were promised that this was going to be a tax on the richest of the rich, and it was supposed to be a very, very small tax. And so the majority of people said, well, I'm not the super rich. It's not going to affect me. So I'm going to vote for this, and I'm going to benefit by taxing these really rich people. But what they didn't figure on is that the government lies, and they always lie, and they always increase their power, and they increase their ability to tax people.
Yeah.
And so with inflation, and so we have inflation where the government can't even get enough money in terms of taxes. So what they do, they literally print it. Now they just add a couple of zeros and make digital currency. We've got this exuberance of the Fed, another institution that the Constitution that doesn't give power to. They just print money, just give it away, which dilutes the value of your money. And so what happens is when my parents first bought their house, it was in the neighborhood of maybe $9,000. Those homes now, where I grew up, when they bought in 1955, those houses are selling for $150,000. So what's happened is when the income tax amendment was first implemented, only the rich were paying it, but now we're the rich. We're the ones making $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, $100,000, $120,000 a year. But that's only because the government has inflated the currency. That is, it has diluted the value of the currency, and we've been bumped up into higher tax brackets.
That's right.
So this isn't just about taxing the church. This is about the very spectrum of what it means for the government to control our lives and then to finance that control of our lives using envy and covetousness in order to control people.
That's powerful. And there's, Gary, there's actually an excellent portion of Scripture to look at. Is it 1st or 2nd Samuel in chapter 8? I'm losing that right now.
First Samuel 8.
1 Samuel 8. And this is where basically Israel wants to be like all the other nations and wants to have a king. Now, God actually punishes them because he says, I'm your king.
Right.
They were supposed to be ruled under God. And so he says, fine, you want a king like all the other nations? You'll get one. And here's what he's going to do. He's going to take your sons to war, and he's going to tax you at 10%. So what's interesting is it was seen as a judgment of God, a judgment of God to be taxed at 10%. In other words,
think of that, 10%.
So right.
Some states have a sales tax close to 10%.
Yeah. No kidding. And so what's interesting is you have it's definitional in God's law. This is judgment. The state will become so wicked and think that it's God and that it's worthy of the tithe. 10%. It's so corrupt and wicked, it actually thinks it can take God's money. And God's level of giving, 10%. Yeah. And so that is clearly wicked. To take 10% taxes is a punishment on people, and we are way beyond that now. Yeah. And we even have, and this is so great, it's what I've learned from you, Gary, about history in terms of where we've come from. This is powerful in terms of God's law has a very focused attention, an eye on personal property, justice, those sorts of things. So there's rules in God's law about boundary markers, like you don't move your boundary marker, like you don't steal land from another person. Why? Because personal property matters. You've got laws against theft and the requirement to repay when you've stolen. God even has different standards in terms of if you've stolen something for a business, the repayment is different because it was for a business. So personal property is a big deal to God. God preserves that. And then you've got the issue of like wealth in a family, wealth building in a family that's meant to pass down to the next generation, to bless the next generation. So like there's this whole system in God's law where there's supposed to be like this growing of wealth and prosperity because of personal property, labor, all those great things that happen in somebody's life that then gets passed down to the family. So now the family gets a boost in the next generation to build businesses, to establish, it's good for society. Like it's good for everybody. Talk about like, what's good for the society around us. I'd say, the family, this establishing of wealth. But what's amazing is God's law says like, it's got to go this way. When the person dies, God's law doesn't suggest that it goes to the state. Well, now the government's got to get their portion of like your personal property as though they owned it. Mm-hmm. They don't. In God's law, that's yours. Right. That's straight away. That belongs to you. Yeah. And it goes to your family, distributed to your family. Whereas, and now we have like high sales tax, you have income tax, you have death tax. You've got now the money not going to the firstborn of your family. Now the firstborn is the state. Right? And here's another thing too, and this is a sad situation. It's nothing to laugh about. It's very, very serious. Now when you buy a house in the United States of America,
I was going to mention that.
You bought your house recently.
Yeah.
You're never going to own it.
Right.
That's very disturbing and unjust. You buy a house, you pay that house off, but you are renting from the government permanently. How? Property taxation. Right. So now, like, you can't just own a house and land and property. Now we have property tax where, guess what? If you don't pay your property taxes, you're not keeping that land.
Yeah.
And you think about, like, well, what's the property tax for? Well, it's to pay for all these things over here and over here. And you go, but I don't want to have anything to do with those things. Doesn't matter. Pay it or I take your stuff. So you have essentially the threat now of, I will take your property via force if you don't pay me this money. Now, that sounds to me like something that robbers do. The difference is robbers usually use a deadly weapon to cause fear, whereas in this case, it's judges wearing black robes with fancy pens.
Yeah.
And they threaten you with incarceration or the removal of your property and all the rest.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's funny because the property taxes go for something that Gary doesn't believe in, and that's public schools. And
we've been taxed on public schools ever since we've owned our house. Even when you rent, by the way, a lot of people don't realize this. When you're renting, you're still paying the property tax because your rent is part of what the owner of the property has. He has to pay that. And he just added it to your rental price. But yeah, we had to, and you guys, same thing. We had to pay the property tax when our children were going to. We homeschooled for a while, but we also sent them to private school, so we were paying a double tax.
Right.
In essence, we're having to pay for other people's children to go to school for free, and then we had to pay for our children to go to private schools that we paid out of our own pocket, and we went without things in order, to do that today. Public education is not free. Someone's paying for it, and people don't realize it, but it's being paid for at a discount for them because other people are being forced to have to pay tax in order for the educational system to work.
We even just had in Gilbert, they just had a vote to raise the funds for the school system. We're like, no, but I think part of the problem is a lot of Christians, like, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, no problem, because they're sending their kids to public schools. But like, they're like, oh yeah, it's not that big of an increase, and so my property taxes have increased a little bit in the 2 years I've owned my house, and it's not much, but when you start to add that up, it's theft.
It's not fair.
Right, it's not fair.
It's not just because you're not asking to pay into that. It's not a voluntary tax, right? So I guess let's do that real fast, and then we'll have you answer that question, Gary, about the question asked of Jesus. Is there such a thing as a righteous tax? Like, can we do this? Can we do this in a way that's pleasing?
A good question.
Can we do it in a way that's pleasing to God? Is the question I have. Like, we have to be able to fund the government to be the servant of God, to execute justice. We need a court system. We need to be able to distribute punishment, all those sorts of things. You need to be able to pay for that. So is there a way, and that's what the government's for. All these other social programs, that's not what the government's for. The government should not be funding those things, taking money for those things, but they do need to receive money to be able to function, right? So
yeah, exactly.
So how do we do it?
That's what you have to determine. You have to determine what is the legitimate jurisdictional power of a civil government at the federal level, at the state level, and at the county level. And once you do that, you say, this is what we collect taxes for. And so education, that's not the domain of the government. And so you would get education, you pay for your child's own education. And people say, well, we can't afford that. Well, I guarantee you, if everybody had to pay for their own child's education, the cost of education would come down.
Right.
You would also see that there would be a shorter day. You don't need to be in classes. Anybody who's homeschooled knows this.
Yes.
You don't have to be in classes 6 to 7 hours a day. You wouldn't be driving them to school. There wouldn't be any school buses. All of these things would change. The actual cost of something would go down. But a lot of people they want the big football team, they want the band, they want cheerleading, they want prestige for their school and so forth. And so they're willing to send their children to essentially a corrupt system, but they're getting it at a discount because they're not paying the full freight. When we sent our kids to a Christian school, my wife taught there, helped pay for it. No one was sent away because they couldn't afford it. There was always a way in order to accommodate people who didn't have the money for it. And if churches got involved and quit spending their money on their facilities and use some of that money to, like at our church, we have a Christian school. And they think about churches. Churches use the big churches use Sunday school classes how many hours a week? Two maybe
or
3 hours a week?
Yeah.
Think of that. So the rest of the week, those classrooms are vacant. That the church is vacant. And what we've done at our church is those Sunday school classes are used for the Christian school.
Yeah.
And so here you are, you're paying your tithe to the church, and that then is used to help educate your own children. And what do we end up doing? We end up, sending missionaries overseas, and the irony here is that we end up sending missionaries and money overseas for schools, to teach these young people, these families, and to start schools. And yet we won't do it in our own country because we just think it's more prestigious to send our children to a school with a big name, with a big band, and the football team, and the stadium, and all those types of things. So all of these factors fit into what is necessary for what the civil government should be doing. Education is a big one. Take that out, you change things dramatically. We never should have had Social Security. Medicare and all those things as well. And people say, well, how could we ever live without Social Security? Save your own money, invest your own money.
Yeah, exactly.
You keep it.
And studies have been done. I know there was a county in Texas that there was a time where you could drop out of the Social Security system. In fact, public school teachers had a choice of either being in or out of the Social Security system. That's all changed now. Did you know that congressmen, senators, and federal workers were not part of the Social Security system until about 1983 or 1985? That means the men and women who voted in Social Security were not in the system themselves. They had their own private so-called Social Security system, funded by their own pay and also funded by additional monies taken from us to give to them. That was later changed. Churches, by the way, were not involved in Christian schools. I remember the first time we taught at a Christian school and nonprofit organizations. They were not in the Social Security system. And the study was done in Texas with a school system where the teachers had opted out, and they had more money saved up as a result of privately funding their own retirement system than they would have gotten with Social Security.
Of course. Yes.
So you just go down the list with all these different programs, and they say, well, how could we live without them? Well, for the longest time, we did live without them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you people just need to be disciplined to take care of. There are lots of people today who don't have much saved up for retirement because they're dependent now. They think Social Security is going to take care of them.
Yeah.
They're in for a rude awakening to find out how little they're actually going to get in Social Security. And if they haven't saved on their own, they're going to be in big trouble. And watch the federal government come in here and tax us even more in order to help people who can't afford to retire.
That's right.
That's happening to my own dad right now. I've been talking to him. His health his back's real bad, and he's not able to work, and so he's going on Social Security, and it's peanuts. He's like having to try to do Uber as well.
What's happened though is the government says, Social Security. You go back and study the history of Social Security, and you will find it with Otto von Bismarck, who was the leader of Germany before the rise of Adolf Hitler. And Adolf Hitler actually modeled his version of Social Security after Otto von Bismarck, and so did FDR. I have a book that's just the whole history of all of this. It's promoting Social Security, and I think it was written before Hitler came to power, and the example they use is Otto von Bismarck, and it sounds just like our own Social Security system today. So it was birthed in pre-Nazi Germany, around the Weimar Republic. So the history of this is enormous in the way that the government has just controlled every aspect of our lives and made things more expensive for us.
Wow.
Yeah. Yes. And so we're going to get we'll take a commercial break here in a minute. And then we're going to come back and really address the passage where Jesus is challenged by the people who obviously had malice and were hypocrites, according to Jesus, who were trying to challenge him on the issue of taxation. We're going to examine that. That's used a lot in terms of, I even saw someone on a thread here, just like, who's on our money? That's our government. You got to pay taxes to whom they're due. Really? How about if they ask for 99%? How about that? You're still going to say, pay to whom's due?
Right.
Or is there actually an issue of justice involved? Or was Jesus really giving carte blanche, just saying, ollie oxen free,
Right.
every government can take whatever they want from you, and you just got to pay it because, hey, their image is on that thing? Is that really what Jesus was saying?
Right.
Is that what he was saying? What we're arguing here is actually that Jesus is king. He's Lord over all. His law is good. And we ask these questions when we face society. By what standard should we actually face this down and address this? And we say the law of God. So, for example, right here, see that? That's
Gary can't see
that's
it.
a Sig Sauer P226 Mark 25. That's the Navy SEAL. That was the Navy SEAL issue at 9mm. And what do you got? What do you got? Show right yours.
I got a Kimber
There you
Micro
go.
9.
There you go. That's a sweet little thing. We put a big hurtin'. But why are we're saying actually there were a lot of good things that happened early on in America because of the Christian worldview in the atmosphere. So, for example, the freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, the right to defend yourself, the right to self-defense there, the right against warrantless searches and seizures, biblical law is behind that. The right against self-incrimination, that's biblical law all over that. So what we're actually saying is not, Republicans and libertarians and Ron Paul's my homeboy, although Ron Paul is my homeboy.
Yeah, he's pretty
Although he is my
pretty
homeboy, but that's not the point here. We're not arguing from that kind of political platform standpoint. We're arguing from a Christian perspective that the law of God produces fruit and blessing in a society.
Right.
And when you get away from God's law, there's corruption, there's injustice, there's pain, there's destruction, there's misery on a number of levels. But why do we have things like this? Why are we believers in the Second Amendment? I would argue it's because of God's law. And why are we opposed to unjust taxation in these ways? It's because God's law.
Exactly.
God's law speaks to personal property. It speaks to the issue of taxation. It tells you what even judgment taxation is. Gives you a standard for what that would look like. And I think any nation that wants to obey Jesus needs to consider that God's already said, if you're the kind of wicked nation or king that believes that you can take 10%, you're in sin.
Yeah.
Because that's judgment from God. He said so. I think we need to gauge it like that. We need to say, like, if we love our neighbor, here's the final thing I'll say here. If we love our neighbor, and that's what it comes down to. People forget that in this whole discussion. They're like, just pay it. Ollie, oxen free, pay the taxes. Like, if they say it, pay it. It's like, no, if you love your neighbor, which we're commanded to do, you'll actually care that they're being stolen from. Take yourself out of the picture for a second and care and talk about justice for your neighbor. If your neighbors are being stolen from, does Jesus command you in the new covenant to care about that?
Right.
Well, he says love your enemies and to love your neighbor as you love yourself. So love for my neighbor requires me to care when injustice is perpetrated upon them. Is it unjust to have these sorts of taxation or tax codes imposed upon people? The answer is yes. By what standard? By the law of God standard. He's revealed from his own mouth, this is unjust, this is wicked, this is sinful. So we should say, love for neighbor requires me to care about that. Not love for Ron Paul, not love for libertarianism, not love for Republican Party, but love for the law of God. Why should we care about the Second Amendment being attacked? Because God's law.
Yep.
Did you know that? That there's actually a biblical case in terms of weapons and being able to defend yourself, all those things. Why should we care about the Second Amendment? Because God's law. Why should we care about the First Amendment? Because God's law. Why should we care about the Fourth Amendment? Because God's law. Fifth Amendment? Because God's law. God's law was underneath that. So we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll come back more with Uncle Gary talking about taxation. We're going to get right into Matthew 22 and ask Gary the question that was asked of Jesus. Does that mean unlimited taxation? You just have to obey? Or what actually was being asked there, and what did Jesus respond with? Why does it matter? We will be right back, guys. Stay with us. It's going to be a very interesting discussion, and I'm going to kick it over to the Bear, and he's going to ask some current event issues with tax-exempt stuff, with churches, those sorts of things. Very important discussion. Share this across your social media platforms. Thank you guys for watching. ApologiaStudios.com is where you guys go to get more. We'll be right back after this.
No. goal for New St. Andrews College, as it trains its students, is not to make people who will be able to go out and just get jobs, people who will just be bricks in the wall of our society. The goal for New St. Andrews College is to make students into men and women who will really impact culture.
I want their faith to not just be something that stands, but something around which culture can be built.
We want students who can think critically about arguments, but also about the culture around them, that can then speak clearly to it, and that also have the ability to influence and shape because of the power of their message. Because that's really what the gospel does. The gospel throws down all the arguments against it. It speaks to the hearts of people, it influences, and it changes.
Go to apologiastudios.com, get signed up, partner with us on All Access. You get all of the radio programs, you get the TV show, you get the after show, including Apologia Academy, and you partner with us in ministry, bringing the gospel around the world. Oh, good timing on that. What's up, guys? Welcome back. Apologia Radio, gospel heard around the world. That is Luke the Bear.
What up?
I'm Jeff the Coleman the Ninja. ApologiaStudios.com is where you guys go to get more. APOLOGIA Studios.com. By the way, you can also get all the other shows on the network. You can get Sheologians on the network. You also get the show Cultish we have. And we do have a new show, A Bruin, that'll be hopefully coming out pretty soon. So, hey guys, welcome back. We're talking about, as you can see in the description, taxation. We're talking about God's law, just taxation. So I opened up the show today reading from Matthew chapter 22, starting at verse 15. It's the question that the Pharisees went and plotted how to entangle him in his words. And they sent their disciples to him along with the Herodians, saying, "Teacher, we know that you are true and teach the way of God truthfully, and you do not care about anyone's opinion, for you are not swayed by appearances. Tell us then, what do you think? Is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar or not?" The question trying to trap Jesus and twist him up. Here's the deal. This thing's used all the time. I'm sure there are people that are going to come in a thread here, and they're going to be like, that's where Jesus says you just pay taxes to Caesar. Mm-hmm. You do everything he says, yep. Luke. You obey and you yield to Caesar because his image is on that coin.
Exactly.
So Gary Demar, is Jesus teaching unlimited taxation here, that we just pay taxes just however's asked?
Well, the verse 15 is the key to this whole thing. They came to trap him.
Right.
So this is an attempt to trap Jesus in something. And any of these religious leaders would have known the history of why there is a coin with Caesar's image on it, and that they are now under the boot of the Roman Empire. They're under judgment. These aren't normal circumstances. If Israel hadn't been disobedient and under God's judgment, they wouldn't be under the boot of Rome. And so Jesus is actually explaining to them, you're here in terms of judgment. The reason that you're under Caesar at this particular point is because it was your choice to do so. That's the first thing. It was a trap in order to, and by the way, we know that what happens later on, because when Jesus is taken to trial,
false witnesses come and say, oh, he said we weren't supposed to pay taxes to Caesar. And so this is a jurisdictional debate, and here is a rebel, here is a zealot, and he's broken Roman law and so forth and so on. Of course, Jesus never said any such thing. So this is kind of like what's happening with the Democrats and Trump. They're looking for a way to get rid of him, and one of the ways was to use what the state loves the most, and that's power and money, and to use false witnesses in order to bring that to bear upon Jesus so they could get rid of him. And in John chapter 19, verse 15, what do we hear the crowd say when given the chance to either release Jesus or Barabbas? They call out for Barabbas, and then what does Pilate say? Shall I crucify your king? And their response, we have no king but Caesar.
Exactly.
Yep.
So this is a long line, and remember, this is leading up to this is chapter 22. Chapter 23 deals with an indictment upon the religious leaders of Israel in Jesus' day. And then chapter 24 is a description of the destruction of Jerusalem and the judgment upon their nation. This is all intertwined. This isn't something just pulled out of context here. And so now Jesus is going to talk about taxation. No, this is a passage dealing with judgment.
Yep.
They were under the judgment of the Roman Empire, and those coins, and the fact that and by the way, the tax here is simply I think it's a poll tax. It's not what we would call an income tax, although there was that, and you had Matthew, who was a tax collector, collecting taxes for the Roman Empire. But I always tell people, we don't live under Caesar. If you maintain that we are living under Caesar, then you completely misunderstand the biblical directive of applying God's word to every area of life and how we should be living. Our forefathers worked very diligently in order to get us out of this idea that we are beholding to an almighty, powerful, monarchical state like Rome. And the goal was to get us out of that area, and we find ourselves with the Constitution of the United States. And we always talk about the First Amendment regarding freedom of religion and freedom of the press, freedom of the right to assemble, and freedom of speech. All those are related. But there's another freedom in there that we miss related to this particular topic, and that is that we can petition the government for a redress of grievances. Mm-hmm. That is, we can change our government. These Jews couldn't change the Roman government. We can. That is within our power to do so.
Yeah.
So if we see the federal government overtaxing us, Christians should be outraged by this because of, Jeff, what you talked about in 1 Samuel chapter 8. A 10% tax is a sign of tyranny. Christians everywhere should be saying, if we're taxed 10%, we are under judgment. And we should be changing that, and we have the right to do so. We don't have to acquiesce to Caesar. We don't have to acquiesce to our Congress or to the Supreme Court. We can change our government. And so I get irritated with Christians who say, oh, we're supposed to render under Caesar the things that are Caesar's. Well, how do you determine what's Caesar's? And since our Constitution is in fact our Caesar, we can change it. Mm-hmm. The rendering is in our hands. We just have to make the changes ourselves. Wow. But then we got Christians who don't want to be involved in politics because Jesus didn't get involved in politics. We can't judge. We're living in the last days. Jesus says his kingdom is not of this world. Politics is dirty. You can't impose your morality on other people. In fact, I wrote a book about this called Myths, Lies, and Half-Truths to deal with all these things.
You can only impose morality.
Christians are in a stupor.
Yes.
They don't know God's word. They put God's law aside. We're under grace now. We're not under law. We live in two kingdoms. There's the kingdom of over here that's governed by natural law and so forth. And we got the kingdom of the church, and it only works on ecclesiastical law. And we as Christians can't go into this other kingdom and make application. All of this is a mixture. As Gary North says, you can't change just one thing. everything has to change, and Christians better get on board, or they're going to find themselves of what's happening in Hong Kong.
Very good.
Basically, what I just heard is that eschatology even affects taxes.
Oh yeah. Right. You bet. Yeah. Whoever controls the money controls the future.
Yeah.
Whoever controls the schools controls the future.
Dude, that's a T-shirt, man.
I mean, it's whoever controls the press controls the future. How come Christians don't learn this lesson? It's writ large in history, and it's writ large in biblical history as well.
It should be like, it'd be like unjust taxation ? It should say, get some post mill or get that post mill or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. So somebody asked, you kind of already answered it, Gary, and somebody asked in the thread, like, do we just rebel? Do we just revolt? Well, the answer is, I think the answer to that is, like, we don't have that kind of a system. Like, Christians can operate within the system to actually influence with the gospel first and foremost, so that people's hearts change in this area. They don't want to take from their neighbor. They don't want to covet. They respect personal property, those sorts of things. But we actually, Gary's right. We have a system where we can actually redress the government, and we say, no, you're being wicked. No, you're being sinful. But it is, Gary's right. It's going to take the church standing up and saying, this isn't my personal opinion. It's wicked because God said so. So repent of it. Stop doing it.
Well, even Christians like free stuff. That's the problem.
That's the problem.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
There's nothing new. There's nothing new in any of this. Yeah. I mean, the reason we have the 10th commandment about coveting, thou shalt not covet, is because we are covetousness.
Yep.
We're involved in covetousness. Paul brings this up. Nothing has changed since the Garden of Eden. We're the same. You got envy. All of these sins that we're seeing today are within the church, and unfortunately, you got pastors who won't preach on this stuff.
Yeah.
And the reason they don't is because there's another economic reason, is that they're in debt. You can gauge how much a pastor will really be serious about preaching on God's law by how much debt they're in, because they know if they talk up, and this is the same about abortion and homosexuality as well. It's because they look and they say, if I lose 20% of my congregation, we're going to be bankrupt. Mm-hmm. And so again, this is all intertwined. You can't just move away from one area and put it over here and say, well, we can't discuss that. Mm-hmm. This idea of two kingdoms is nonsense. There's one kingdom, but there are different jurisdictions. There's an ecclesiastical jurisdiction and there's a civil jurisdiction. Christians believe, they should believe, in a separation between church and state, with one defining word there, and that is a jurisdictional separation between church and state. That's why churches should not be taxed, just like state governments can't tax federal governments, and federal governments can't tax state governments, and the United States government cannot tax embassies, is because there is jurisdictional separation. Again, Christians aren't taught this sort of thing. The Bible is very specific about jurisdictional separation.
So this brings us right into the next topic then, and what kind of actually influenced us having this show was I had posted an article about Beto Hide Your Guns O'Rourke, and how he said he said that if he was president that he would make it so that churches had to pay taxes or something like that. And so Gary, you came on there and you're like, actually, it's not the church that pays the taxes, it's the people. And I was like, let's talk about this. And you're like, let's do it. So here we are. So that's kind of what started this conversation. So Gary, explain then what you meant by that.
Well, it's because the people who when you donate to a church, you get a tax deduction. And by the way, this isn't just churches. This is 501c3 organizations, and that's a big discussion because Christians are saying we shouldn't be 501c3 organizations because there's a law on the books from 1954 called the Johnson Amendment, Lyndon Johnson, because he didn't like it because some nonprofit group attacked him, and so he wanted this law passed. And of course, all of these politicians wanted this law passed to keep these organizations from attacking them on principle. And so then this was written into the IRS code that 501c3 organizations, most churches are 501c3s, that gives them protection as a result of all this, cannot endorse a candidate. And Beto O'Rourke said, "Oh, we're going to remove that. They shouldn't have this tax exemption anymore." But this applies to every organization that's a 501c3 organization. So when you donate to your church, the church receives that money and doesn't have to pay tax on it. And you, as the donor, don't have to pay. It's deducted from. You can deduct it from your gross amount. And anybody can do that. Liberal churches, conservative churches, irrelevant churches, they can do that, and that's with 501c3s in general. So to say, well, you're going to tax the church, you're really saying you're taxing individual people because they are the ones who are going to lose the tax exempt status.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Now, the church can get around this by saying, look, we won't be taxed anyway because if someone gives a gift to the church, that's not taxable. Mm-hmm. If I decide I want to give $15,000 to my church and my wife wants to give $15,000 to the church, the church wouldn't be taxed on that. I would be, and my wife and I would be.
Exactly.
Because you can gift anybody up to $15,000 a year without any tax repercussions to the one who's receiving the gift. So
that's right. That's right.
But this is a jurisdictional issue. The church is an embassy, and just like foreign embassies are not taxed, it's the same thing with the church. There's jurisdictional separation between church and state. And don't you always hear liberals saying separation between church and state, separation between church and state, until it comes to money and political influence, and then that's when they want to come in there and tax churches. But here's another thing. I have this article here that was in The Atlantic, the online, basically a liberal magazine. It says black pastors are breaking the law to get Hillary Clinton elected. Now, this was written in 2016, August of 2016. Nearly a third of these churchgoers say they've heard clergy support her from the pulpit in the past few months, according to a survey. Liberals don't pay any attention to this prohibition, this Johnson Amendment from 1954. They have been using churches to push politics and endorse candidates from the beginning.
Absolutely.
They are never attacked for this. This is the only groups that are attacked are conservative churches. Here's, Hillary Clinton and even Andrew Cuomo, who's passed this Johnson Amendment for the state. And of course, Luke, you saw my article on this. He, just a couple of years ago, he's preaching in these churches and pushing candidates.
Yep.
So liberals don't pay attention to these to these laws, these prohibitions. Only conservatives do. Black churches have been, and I'm all for it. Black churches. This was the place, one of the places that the only places blacks could get their message out was in churches. The whole civil rights movement was based in churches. It was the Reverend Martin Luther King who led this, the civil rights movement. Mm-hmm. We're the ones with a message, and unfortunately, Christians don't see it. Somebody posted something on my Facebook page today about we shouldn't be preaching from politics from the pulpit. I said, well, then you can't preach the Bible. There are 12, the 12 minor prophets. Read those minor prophets and tell me that they didn't preach politics. Mm-hmm. You got Isaiah chapter 1 dealt with the topic of inflation. Your silver has become dross, and your wine has been diluted with water. That's what our government has been doing with our currency. And I tell people, look, you don't have to endorse a candidate. No. But you are obligated to go to the Bible and preach from the Bible what it has to say about every area of life, and politics is one of those areas.
Yeah. It's one of our good friends says, well, we shouldn't say as Christians that we're to drop like vote for Murphy signs in front of our church kind of a thing.
Right.
But what we should say as churches God's command,
Yeah.
is that we preach the truth and the issues of justice from the pulpit and comes out from the people of God to address the government.
Right.
We should talk to the government and say, this is unjust, this is wicked, this is sinful. And you're right, Gary, a lot of churches don't realize that 501c3 status actually can cause a lot of problems for them and is doing so in states like New York.
Yep, we were just talking about this.
Already causing problems for churches out there, 501c3 status. You'll all be happy to know that Apologia Church is not 501c3. We are 508.
Correct.
And that means we basically are defined as church-state relationship. You leave us alone. We're the church. We're not under your jurisdiction. And however, we will tell you what God has to say. And you had better listen. So, yeah.
One of my favorite sermons, I think it's in our intro, isn't it? Or was in the old intro, is by a guy that might get me banned from certain places if I say his name.
He who shall not be named is in our opening. Yes, that's right.
But that was a sermon he gave to, was it the governor, I think, of Idaho?
I think it was.
Like
It
was amazing.
Yeah.
And,
yeah. Yeah, he who shall not be named.
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds like
sounds
like Smuggler's Pilsen.
Read the Puritan pulpit, election day sermons. This was all part of our heritage that gave us what we used to have. And Christians, pastors today are just sheep. They don't want to talk about this sort of thing at all. But they're obligated to talk about these things. That's why God raised them up. The Apostle Paul had no problem dealing with this and issues. But we're not anarchists.
No.
We're not calling for an armed revolution to overturn our government. We have the power, which is within our power right now. The next election, we could throw all the bums out, and we could change our government.
Gary Demar for president. Gary Demar for president. I would vote for that in a heartbeat. I would vote for that in a heartbeat, Gary.
Yeah. I have too much baggage. There's too much baggage.
Smuggler's Pilsen. There you go. That's right. All right. So that's Uncle Gary. Hey, Gary, it's AmericanVision.com and .org, right? Both?
AmericanVision.org. I've got a God and Government book which deals with all of this. All the stuff we've talked about today, it's in there. You can order that. It's God and Government, books on eschatology. There's a story. Go to the store. You can do all that. Mm-hmm. And I mentioned to you guys earlier that we're working on a new Greg Bahnsen book on apologetics, based upon 2 years of lectures that he did for us back in 1992 and 1993. We've transcribed the talks, and they're being proofed right now. That should be out early next year.
Yes. Excellent, guys. Get to know Uncle Gary Demar, guys. AmericanVision.com. Make sure you guys go get some books. Again, recommendations. God and Government's amazing. Wars and Rumors of Wars really, really bless you and challenge you. I encourage you to go ahead and get it. Get the book today. Read the book. Be challenged on the issue of eschatology. I think it'll really bless you. One of the things, and I'll just sort of leave with this. Luke just said it. Pastor Luke just said it. The issue of eschatology impacts even your view of taxes.
Right.
Because if you have a perspective of the future that Jesus is reigning and ruling now, putting all of his enemies under his feet, and he's bringing salvation and justice to the world, there's a gospel of the kingdom. If you believe that actually impacts like your perspective of the future. You're not thinking just about the next 5 years or 5 months or 7 years. You're thinking about your great-great-great-grandkids and what they're going to face. You're thinking about justice for your neighbors in the next generation because you have a long-term view of the future in terms of the victory of the Messiah in the world. And I will say this, Gary, just this will bless you because it's your ministry in life and labor that has impacted us, which has led to our ministry of teaching and everything else around the world. Just in the last couple of months, I've had numerous people come up to me in different states who have said, your teaching on the kingdom of God, the victory of the Messiah, the law of God has completely transformed my entire life, my family, what I'm doing in the world now. It's completely changed my perspective, and it's given me hope for the future, and it's put me to work. And those sorts of things are being said. So Gary, the message is getting out there, and God's doing big things. So we're blessed to be a part of it, brother, and we thank you for joining us today on the show.
Well, thank you. Anytime. If I'm available, we're more than happy to come on.
We'd love to have you on again, brother. Hopefully soon.
All right,
brother.
Thanks.
God bless you. All right, everybody. So that has been Apologia Radio for today, talking about biblical law, taxation. Good show, Bear.
This was awesome.
It was a good show.
I love
very
Uncle Gary.
instructive. Very, very instructive. Hey, guys, people need to know about this. They need to hear this conversation, start to digest it, start to think critically about it, work through some of the issues. So why don't you do us a solid and share it with your brosifs. Share it with them internets. Let everybody know about it, guys. And thank you guys, all you guys who are watching live right now. Again, point you to apologiastudios.com. Go there, get all access, partner with us in this ministry. Here's the deal. You not only get great stuff. I saw a girl yesterday post. She said all Apology Academy has just transformed her
Praise God.
life, and I'm so encouraged by that. And so much more is going to continue to come and be dropped in there, guys. But it's not just about Apology Academy television show, after show. It's not just about all that stuff that's there. It really is about this overall ministry. Like yesterday, for example, we got to go to ASU. We'll be putting some more content up from that. You guys may see it in the feed here. Pastor versus a moral nihilist or something like that. So like being able to get out there, film that, get in here,
right.
like all the stuff to make that happen, to put it up, to go bless people. It's already been seen by like 30-something thousand people. It's encouraging believers, getting them on the streets, impacting unbelievers. Like that's you.
Right.
You need to know that. And we mean that. Luke and I are very, very appreciative for that. Luke and I started this ministry 2008 with chicken scratch.
If that.
We were just pulling money out of our pockets, going to Radio Shack to buy a little voice recorder to go sit down with some Jehovah's Witnesses to go record a conversation with them and upload that. That's from the very beginning. It has been impact the world, record these conversations to help the church. But from the very, very beginning, it was really trying to just labor faithfully, preach the gospel, and to do it in the public square in such a way that everybody could see what was happening. And from that time, God has used his people, you, to make this ministry have more impact and to reach more people. And you just got to know that. That's from the very beginning. It's just been us trying to be faithful. And you guys have put your hands in our hands to make it all happen. And so thank you. Thank you. Like all this, the lights, the microphones, the computers, everything happens because you are part of our All Access partnership. And so I want to thank you. It's not, like I said, All Access isn't just about all the stuff you get. It's about you are a partner in this ministry making it happen. Even the stuff we're doing with abortion still can't really happen. Even with the
right.
EAN stuff we're doing, it really can't happen without All Access partnership. So it's kind of a joint operation happening. By the way, endabortionnow.com is where you go. New website, which is totally awesome.
It is so awesome. Man.
I really, really like it. endabortionnow.com. Tim did an amazing job. Nailed it. It's amazing. It's going to get constantly updated over the next year to get more just special connections, more instruction, all that stuff. endabortionnow.com is where you go. You can actually watch Babies Are... I'm trying not to throw off the algorithm for YouTube. You can watch the new film that we made at the website, and it's at endabortionnow.com. And what else? What else is going on?
I wonder if we started saying stuff like that in Pig Latin, if it would catch it.
And a abortion, hey, how do you do? I don't even remember how to do Pig Latin.
Erder May.
The last time I did it was like in 4th grade. I don't even remember. Okay, it's Pig Latin. That's hilarious. So, yeah, endabortionnow.com. Go there, guys. Sign your church up. Hey, guess what? Did you know we dropped 9 yesterday in the mail? That was how many we dropped yesterday. 9 kits.
Oh.
Just in one day. We have more.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So when just encouragement to you guys, we have some churches, single churches that have saved dozens and dozens of children. Like a single local church that we've equipped and everything. They've saved dozens and dozens of children. They've gone and spoken at their city council, called them to repentance, demand an establishment of justice, all that. But yesterday alone, we dropped 9 church kits in the mail. Wow. 9. That's 9 local churches now who are going out to the abortion mill to save children's lives. Each kit is a local church with pastors and a body of believers. It's really amazing what God is doing. We got more in the hopper right now.
Yeah,
just getting ready to get approved and all the rest. So thank you guys for being a part of this with us. endabortionnow.com is where you go to get signed up with your church. Be on the lookout, if you would, over the next couple of weeks for something very big to drop on Amazon.com.
Oh, that was supposed to be today.
Is it today? We got to look. Can you guys hang on?
Just hold on a second.
Hey, Can you guys hang on a second? We don't know if something actually happened today.
That was supposed to be today.
It was supposed to be today. Let's see here. So what we got?
This is literally live.
Yeah, literally live. Let's check it out. Let's see if it actually happened. Did it? Nope, not yet. Not yet. So it's not up yet.
Okay, we'll let you know.
Something big is going to drop on Amazon.com very soon. Pray for that. Pray that it doesn't get stopped or blocked. We did everything we could to get it up there, so it should be there soon. Amazon Prime, y'all. Also, just be on the lookout over the next 2 months as we get ready for 2020. Our mission with EndAbortionNow.com, equipping churches, saving lives, and once and for all, abolishing and ending abortion. Also, by the way, I should mention it, Free the States. We have a conference we're doing in the beginning of February with Free the States, Russell Hunter, Rusty Thomas. I'm sorry, Russell, if you watch this, I don't have all the stuff memorized here. Luke, do you have memorized? I'm sorry, guys.
The dates?
It's been chaos the last couple of
days.
No,
I don't.
Okay, so I want to make sure, since we have everyone on right now, let's go ahead and do it. Okay, Free the States, Get Equipped, Ending Abortion, Abolition Now Conference. You guys are amazing. I love how he's Abolition Now. I love you. I love you, Russell. So we've got Joseph Silk, Senator Joseph Silk, Russell Hunter, Rusty Thomas, John Speed, just a bunch of people here. Myself, Luke, you're coming?
Yeah.
Yeah. Pastor Zach's coming. And we're having a special day where we team up with them and do some End Abortion Now stuff. So it is 2020, beginning of February. It's in Oklahoma. Go to freethestates.org to get registered. It's the beginning of February. Sorry, I'm sorry. Just go to the website. I'm sorry, guys. I should know this. We have too much happening. So that's coming up.
I usually know these things, but I can't seem to.
Oh, here it is. Okay, Abolition Now Conference, February 7th through 12th.
That's it.
So we're teaming up with OSA, some AHA dudes, and End Abortion Now, working to once and for all end abortion, criminalize it, abolish it in the state of Oklahoma. And so some big stuff happening. Make sure you guys come say hi to us, come hang out with us. We're going to be doing that together with them. Very, very humbled to be a part of that with these guys. And just be in prayer for us as we prep for 2020. We've been in meetings for the last day as pastors, just planning and prepping for our 2020 mission for End Abortion Now. And it's every year God has given us more responsibility, and He's given us more of an impact. We started with peanuts in comparison to the abortion pro-life movement industry.
Still working with peanuts.
Still working with peanuts compared to them. They have like multi-million-dollar budgets, and God has allowed us to do what we've done with peanuts in comparison, and we're praising God for that. All the churches that have gotten equipped by us and are out now serving in this way, it's all been to them for absolutely free, nothing. And that's because you partnered with us. So every life that has been saved, it's been saved through a means. And the means is not simply this ministry and Luke and me and Zach and Joy and the team, who all works to put all this together. It's all of us together, truly. It's us working together. So over the next 2 months, we're going to be announcing the plan for 2020. Get connected with endabortionnow.com with your church. Get signed up. And that's it. Anything else I'm missing?
Well, hopefully we'll have another trip to Ireland and hopefully Scotland as well.
That's right.
That's in the works.
That's in the works right now. We should probably start settling that in the next couple of days, actually. So the plan is to go and help the church in Northern Ireland and some in Southern, probably.
Yes.
And Scotland as well near the beginning of next year. So we're working on that trip right now to go bless a church out there to help them to overcome this evil in their country as well. Oh, some of you guys are asking, too, about the 508. I'll just go ahead and give a plug because they were a big help to us. Helping Hands Outreach. Helping Hands Outreach. If you are a pastor and you are a 501c3 right now and you're like, oh no, this isn't safe. This may be used against me if I start preaching against the government and their unjust things. Then you can switch to the 508. It's actually not a difficult process. You just go to Helping Hands Outreach and they will hook you up. They're good people. They're actually very, very helpful and quick. and you can switch from the 501c3 to the 508. I think it's a much safer designation for churches. It makes more sense in terms of a designation for a church, and you don't have the restrictions that the government tried to put with the 501c3 in terms of shut your mouth, don't speak to these issues. Basically, if the government comes in and says in Arizona, 501c3s, you keep silent, don't speak to these issues, we'll say, pound sand, I'm 508, baby. And even if they came and said, shut up, we'd say, I must obey God rather than men. So either way, we're going to preach the truth. So thank you guys so much for watching today. That's Luke the Bear.
Peace out.
Joy the Girl is not here today. I am Jeff the Calm of the Ninja. We'll catch you guys next week right here on Apologia Radio. Go to apologiastudios.com to get more.